Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, March 16th, 2021, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. Tuesday with Thom, of course, is brought to you by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl customizes solutions to issues of leadership, access and inclusion, economic development, and communications. Best Girl creates the solution that fits your needs. Our roundtable guests, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker, are here, and our special guest today is Thom Noonan, all the way from Los Angeles, California. Thom Noonan is a globally recognized expert and established leader in TV, film, academia, and Fortune 50 media management. I hope you enjoyed our special edition show last week where we reviewed many of our first 25 editions of the show. Your comments were very complimentary. We appreciate it. I want to thank Emily, Sean, Barbara, Michael. Since I couldn't be here, we did my part earlier than that Tuesday. I spent some time in North Carolina, South Carolina, working on a film project. Okay, so we will continue with our celebration of Women's History Month. Today, we highlight two women who made a huge impact in different arenas. One, Helen Keller from Tuscumbia, Alabama, and the other, Cicely Tyson from Harlem, New York. Helen Keller was a blind activist and suffragist in the early 1900s. At 19 months old, an illness left her deaf and blind. And while she could neither see nor hear, she had a vision that influenced countless millions beyond her native Alabama. Thanks to the help of her teacher, Ann Sullivan, who taught her for 49 years, she was able to learn how to communicate. She had practiced tireless activism on behalf of workers and women's rights. Her literary work and her tenure as an unofficial U.S. ambassador to the world. She attended several educational institutions and was accepted at Radcliffe College, where she graduated with honors, becoming the first deaf person to attain a university degree. A trip to Japan in 1948 was the catalyst for Keller's transformation from tourist to semi-official ambassador to the United States. Thrilled by her reception in Japan, the State Department worked with her to fund and facilitate her travels and promote her as a representative of Americanism. In 1964, President Lyndon Johnson awarded her the Congressional Medal of Freedom. And when she died in 1968 at the age of 88, she was one of the most famous people in the world. Keller's quote is, "Your success and happiness lie in you. Resolve to keep happy and your joy, and you shall form an invisible host against difficulties." Our next Women's History honoree is Cicely Tyson, who died on January 28th, 2021 of this year. She is known for her portrayals of strong African-American women. She received 3 Primetime Emmy Awards, 4 Black Reel Awards, 1 Screen Actors Guild Award, 1 Tony Award, and an honorary Academy Award and a Peabody Award. She was nominated for both the Academy Award for Best Actress and a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in the motion picture Sounder, which was just an incredible film. Tyson's portrayal for title role in the 1974 television film The Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, based on a book by Ernest Gaines, won her 2 Emmy Awards and a nomination for a BAFTA Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role. Tyson was named a Kennedy Center honoree in 2015. In November of 2016, Tyson received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian honor in the United States. In 2020, she was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. Those are our 2 honorees today. I'd like to introduce our 2 roundtable guests, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace Edwards is out of Birmingham, Alabama. I always call Barbara a socialite, and I mean that in a very positive way, and she has said I could say that, so I'll say it again. She's Barbara, how are you? What's happening in your world?
Good morning, Thom. I'm doing well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back, and I feel like I hadn't seen you guys in quite a while. Weeks.
I know, I really missed
So
you guys.
tell me what's happening with you.
Well, Tom, I'm still trying to adjust to this daylight savings time thing. We had to spring forward this past weekend. So, as I shared with you all earlier, I've been up since 3:30 this morning. Just I can't get the sleep pattern right. So it's going to take me a couple of weeks to adjust. It always does. So, trying to get ready for that, used to that. In addition to that, this week we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So Wednesday, everyone should wear their green and get out and enjoy the festivities for St. Patrick's Day, but in a safe environment, I hope, wearing masks and gloves. Um, and this coming weekend, spring will arrive. So hopefully everybody's going to be prepared to do all their spring cleaning like I am. I'm ready, trying to gear up all my spring cleaning this week.
Well,
And
I'm
March
not.
Madness is another thing too. March Madness starts this week. There's a lot going on. This is a
It does
busy
it.
week.
Okay.
Yes.
So, have you gotten any COVID shots yet?
I have not. I haven't reached that age limit yet where my age, they're inching up to that number. But right now I haven't, I'm not registered to get my shot. So hopefully soon.
Okay. Well, I did get mine. Actually, what 2, 3 weeks ago,
Right.
and I think it gives you a little more confidence in going out and
Yes.
doing some things. I said, I was in South Carolina last week, and then actually dropped down through Birmingham to pay a visit to my dad
Wow.
for a couple days, spend some time with him and my sisters. And of course, I always tell people, Dad is, let's see, what is he? He's 95 years old, and
Wow.
he'll be 96 sometime in April. And
Wow. That
he's
is such a
he's
blessing.
he's hanging in there. He's hanging in
That's a
there.
blessing.
So
That's great.
uh, uh, somebody asked him if he was going to get a COVID shot, and it's like, well, you know, why? And I don't mean it to sound like that, but
I know. So
uh,
what did how did he respond? What is his plans?
oh, he's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think so. He gets his checkups regularly and all that stuff, and he just got
Right.
another excellent health report. So I don't know. He doesn't go out very much, and so my sisters pretty much take care of him. So
Right.
um,
That's
we'll
good.
we'll see how he's doing. Let's get Michael
Good.
in here. Michael
Okay.
Walker. Michael is president of the Walker Agency, a full service insurance brokerage in Atlanta, Georgia. Michael, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, Tom. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Now I understand you're another one that is having sleeping trouble with the new time. Uh, go ahead.
Yes, I am. Good morning to you, Barbara. Uh, my body rhythm is out of sync, and changing this time. I wish they just pick a time. I don't care if it's daylight
Yeah.
savings time or Central Standard Time. Just pick a time and stick with it. Every 6 months you're changing. Your body rhythm get out of sorts. It disrupts your sleeping pattern, and someone like myself, I guess I'm almost like a creature of habit from my regiment. And I have to
Yes.
do things at a certain way at a certain time. And then this change of clock just throws everything off for me. So, yeah, I'm having a few issues with that.
Well, and I hear you guys. I don't know. It's works for me. I do. I like the other time better, simply because I like to get up early and go for a bike ride and stuff. And now early is late, and so you know, I'll figure it out as we go. But I hadn't had any trouble sleeping, so we'll see where we go from there. Barbara, you got anything for us this morning?
Well, Tom, you're talking about women and powerful women in our lives, and I just want to give a shout out to Mrs. Melina Withers McCants, who was my high school counselor, guidance counselor, and this lady, she's in her 90s now. You talk about your dad's 95. I think Mrs. McCants is 97.
Mm.
You know, just a wonderful lady. She influenced so many young people in the Mobile area. She's the one that made you realize that going to college was reality. I always had that dream, but she got involved in the Upward Bound program there while I was there in Mobile, and she's, like I said, she's just been such a wonderful influence on so many young people there in the Mobile area.
That's great. I think of a lady, and I think I may have talked about her once before, Hilda Horn, who was my speech teacher and who basically encouraged me to do the things I'm doing now. And she was absolutely wonderful. She taught speech. I had to give a speech. And so I went home and wrote this speech on how to cook a hot dog, and came back and gave it in class, and everybody just laughed, and it was so funny, and I was laughing, and everybody laughed but Miss Horn. And Miss Horn, she was kind of a big lady, and she said, "I need to see you after class." And I said, "Oh Lord," and because Miss Horn could take your ear and twist it and take you to your knees, man. It's like, "Oh Lord, I'm going to my knees again." Yeah. and she said, "You could be good at this if you try, if you put your mind to it, and quit being a clown." And she 2 weeks later, she had me writing for the school paper, and just kind of took off from there. So I as far as women's history, she's at the top of my list, up there with my mom and Mom G. So, Michael, you got some tidbits for us this morning?
Well, yes, sir, Tom. I certainly do. What's in the news right now is the American Rescue Plan for 2021. And also known as the COVID Relief Plan. And, it's 668 pages. So a lot of the congressmen and senators, they had their legislative aides and what have you reading and giving them some highlights. I just like to take a moment and share with everyone some of the highlights of the American Rescue Plan that are healthcare related. $7.5 billion have been dedicated to CDC for the planning and preparedness, promotion, distribution, and administration of vaccines. $8.5 billion for rural entities like a lookalike type program to mirror what's going on in the urban areas, and primarily serving those beneficiaries that are on Medicare and Medicaid with healthcare related expenditures. And it's also to help try to prop up some of the providers that lost revenue during COVID-19. There's also another $350 billion that's been set aside for state, localities, and tribal governments to assist them with expenses during COVID relief. And there's $3 billion set aside for mental health initiatives during this particular time. And they have said that mental health issues have gone up during COVID. And that is a combination of isolation for many people, the uncertainty and the disruption that's going on in everybody's lives. So all the way around, there's certainly more attention being paid to healthcare. And that's just a few of the things that's in the bill.
That's great. Thank you. You always bring us good information. I appreciate that. And speaking of mental health, and I'm sure we'll get into this when we talk with Thom, but there's a great film out with Anthony Hopkins called My Father that's touches on mental health and Alzheimer's, and it's I watched it last night. It's a really good film, and so if you guys get a chance, you ought to watch it. So I tell you what, let's move on to our best girl message, and then we'll get to our G-list star. So
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girls team of consultants led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girls customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Okay, so let's get to the G list where everybody is a star. Let's see. Our special guest today is Thom Noonan. Thom is a globally recognized expert and established leader in television, film, academia, and Fortune 50 media management, a network and studio president, production company owner, longtime graduate level visiting professor at UCLA's prestigious theater, film, and TV school, and a member of its leadership committees. He's executive producer of an Oscar-winning film, Crash, as well as a high-level consultant to the world's largest and most influential media companies and universities. Thom has an exceptional track record of successes and achievements at the top levels and across the spectrum of executive life, producing, teaching, and advising. Let's welcome Thom Noonan. Thom, good morning.
Morning, Thom. Good to see you.
All right. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
And let me just say, I met Thom in the UCLA production class this past summer, I guess summer of 2020, and been working with him since then, and just wanted to say thank you. And the class was outstanding, and we're just moving forward. So, Thom, let me ask you just a couple of interesting questions. I want to ask you about the Heart Foundation, but are you familiar with the Father movie with Anthony Hopkins? Have you had a chance to see that one yet?
I haven't seen it yet. I've heard great things about it. Your opinion, of course, means the world to me. So I'm now doubly looking forward to it. But I know Tony, as he's known locally, Anthony Hopkins, I know him a little bit, and he's become a good friend. And I'm just thrilled that he got nominated. He's the oldest actor to be nominated for the Academy Award. It looks like a really powerful film, and also an important one.
It is. So let me just run off a little bit of your credits here, and then we'll get into this. So Thom was the head of movies for television at ABC, one of 6 founding members that helped create and build the Fox network, ultimately running all of primetime and late night at Fox. President of NBC Studios, now known as NBC Universal. President of UPN, now known as the CW, and founders of Bullseye Entertainment and founder of Noonan Consulting Services. So, Thom, can you tell us what you're working on now? Or are you working on one thing?
I actually just sold a project to the new streaming service, Paramount Plus. It's a drama that is that I'm doing with Steph Curry of Unanimous Entertainment. He's obviously the Golden State Warriors, and has moved into film and TV production the way a lot of athletes have recently, including LeBron. So I'm working with them on this 1-hour drama, and I have another drama that I'm taking out to various streamers as we speak. And we have the project that we're working on together, which is an anthology of movies that are highlighting African Americans who are notable in their world of achievement, but are unknown to the general public. And the way you and I have talked about it in the past is, what if we could do one Hidden Figures type film a month? And so that's been a fun project to work on with you. But there's a host of other projects too, but those are some highlights.
And let me just say that I was in the UCLA class this past summer, and that's where I met Thom, and met a bunch of great people. And we're working on some projects, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been great, and it's really interesting because you said something earlier before the show. We were talking, and you said you were going to get to meet Sarah, who was also in our class, and we're living in the Zoom world, and you get to know people through Zoom, and then you don't really realize, okay, I've never met this person in person. I've just known them through the Zoom world. So I'm going to get Michael and Barbara on here in just a minute. But you write for Forbes magazine. You write a television film column, so to speak. And if I'm not classifying it right, let me know. But so tell me about, and we've talked about this, the movie theaters. Are they coming back? Will they come back? Your opinion?
Well, they just opened the theaters here in Los Angeles for the first time yesterday. And, I think it's going to be a slow rollout, but there's no question that the movie theater, the exhibition business, as we call it, will remain intact. The question is who's going to own those theaters. And during the course of 2020, the former administration lifted restrictions on whether studios could own movie theaters. It was a restriction that had been in place for over 50 years. And I believe that the studios are going to start to acquire these movie theaters and use them for exclusive marketing purposes that really are more promoting their streaming platforms than the theaters themselves. But I do think movie theaters will continue to operate. But I think they're going to pivot to more of a studio-owned model. At least that's my prediction.
So streaming is the future.
For now, I mean, you lived through a period of time that I was born into soon after, where everyone said that television is the future.
Yeah.
It's as seismic a progression as television was. I believe. Another way to talk about streaming is calling it digital entertainment, and I think that it's that big as television was in the 1950s.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get Barbara on here and Michael, and they've got a couple questions for you as well, and we'll come back. Barbara?
Yes. Thank you so much. And good morning, Thom Noonan. Wanted to ask you one question. As TV ratings continue to plummet and media companies focus more on streaming, where is broadcast place in today's entertainment world? How are things changing?
Good morning, Barbara. I'm very concerned about where broadcast television is headed, because the viewership is microscopic compared to what it was even 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Viewership has been trending downwards for free over-the-air broadcast television ever since basic cable and then subscription cable came onto the scene, because cable then became synonymous with quality. And if you didn't watch cable, the thought was you weren't watching quality television. So broadcast TV has remained relevant, but it's remained relevant mostly for live events, for competitions, reality shows, magazine shows, investigation shows, and big interviews like the Oprah interview recently with Harry and Meghan. So it still has its place,
Right.
But I think the big question is, how long will scripted series be featured on broadcast television? Because the ratings it's very hard to justify spending that millions of dollars an episode of production of those shows if no one's watching them.
Okay.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Thom, good morning. Glad to have you here with us. I was reading through your bio, and I would like for you to explain to me, because you've been tasked with a gargantuan responsibility, as it says, to create and design a new MFA. What is MFA?
The MFA, good morning, Michael. The MFA is the Masters of Fine Arts at UCLA, and at the moment, if you attend the film school at UCLA, and I use the term film school as just shorthand, it's technically the School of Theater, Film, Television, and New Media, but people just refer to it as a film school. And you can get your master's in writing, you can get it in directing and animation, cinematography, cinema studies. So like a history kind of professor would do cinema studies. But there has never been a master's in television per se, in just that particular medium. And the way that one writes and directs for television is radically different than the way that one writes for and directs for film. And so I got asked to create this Master's in Fine Arts, a whole master's program for UCLA, and they're still in the process of getting that program funded.
Oh, okay. Thank you. You brought up Meghan and Harry, and I wanted to ask you because you wrote an article about the big reveal. So what was the big reveal on the show with Oprah Winfrey from your perspective?
Well, thank you for asking about that. You know, if you watch the special, which over 17 million people did watch the special, which was great. It was one of those few moments in television history where people were promoting ABC, I should say CBS, the network that aired the special. CBS was promoting the special for about 10 days leading up to it. And they were really hyping this special. And I, being a TV and film expert, I felt it was my responsibility to watch it, but I was also really curious about it. And it was one of those few instances I felt where the special outperformed the hype. In other words, it was even more startling than all the promotions and PR that led up to it. And there was one shocking reveal after another in that special. And so when I wrote the article for Forbes, I used that hook of reveals because everybody was stunned by, the young Archie being stripped of any official title, question about the color of the skin of the child before he was even born, security being stripped away from Harry and Meghan, Meghan being suicidal. There was just one crazy reveal after another. The reveal that I wrote about in the piece was related to what Barbara was asking me about, which is the biggest reveal was, hey, broadcast TV is still relevant. We can still put on these specials and people will still gather around the virtual water cooler to watch something together as Americans, the way that we used to watch TV together every night. But it was basically an endorsement of broadcast television. And also I was sort of pointing lighting a path towards a future for broadcast TV and saying, look, why don't you abandon scripted content and focus more on events like this?
Okay.
So, and Thom, as a follow-up to that question, why do you think the networks continue to focus on the dramas and the comedies, the scripted TV shows, rather than more of a reality TVs and special shows like the Reveal?
Well, the short answer is the reason that broadcast networks still fund comedies and dramas, scripted content, is because advertisers love that content. They've always had a feeling that the viewer who watches scripted content is somehow more sophisticated or from a higher income level has more discretionary income to purchase things, so that they're reaching an audience member that they think is a sweeter target for them than maybe news, sports, competition, or reality shows might. I don't know if that's still true. I think that's an old-fashioned concept of viewership and research, but that's why they air scripted content. It's just for advertisers.
Okay. Michael?
Yes, I have a couple more questions. The first one is, you did a production called My Fake Fiance, and I'd like for you to expound on that. And it seemed like it was a little bit forthtelling because Monty Tayo, the football player, had a fake fiance. And it seemed like you did this movie in advance of that, and it just kind of brought it together. So tell me about your Fake Fiance production.
Well, that's funny. That was a movie that we made actually in Atlanta. I don't know if you knew that. We produced My Fake Fiance in Atlanta. And it was a script that a friend of mine wrote on spec. And what on spec means in Hollywood is he wrote it himself for free and finished the script. And then he was seeking to get someone to fund it. A lot of the projects, like the projects I was mentioning with Thom earlier, you sell an idea to a network or a studio, and then they fund the writing of the script. This guy wrote the script for free, and I read it, and we ultimately sold it to what was then known as ABC Family. Now it's called Freeform. And Melissa Joan Hart had done a few movies for them that had performed really well. They asked her to read the script. She loved it. And she had always wanted to work with Joey Lawrence. And so we got the script to Joey, and the rest is history, as they say. So it was a movie that's been around for a long time, a script that had been around for a while before we actually sold it to ABC Family. And it's funny how life can imitate art sometimes.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I have to ask you, from the standpoint of being a producer, are there certain genres that you will love, that you focus on? And what I mean by that is, at least, and I'm sure Thom can remember this and appreciate this, growing up as a kid, I always look on Saturday night to hear the voice say, "Good evening." And it's Alfred Hitchcock. And you know you were going to be scared out of your wits or totally entertained by that. Are there any more people like Alfred Hitchcock now that focus on a certain type of theme or genre when it comes to filming? And if so, what would be yours if you were to say that you're like an Alfred Hitchcock?
Well, there is one filmmaker who is becoming sort of notorious for scaring the wits out of us, while also kind of bringing some social commentary. And that's something that Alfred Hitchcock did, and that's something that Rod Serling did with The Twilight Zone. And the filmmaker I'm thinking of is Jordan Peele, who did Get Out, and he did Us, and he actually did the reboot of The Twilight Zone for CBS All Access, which is the streaming service that's becoming Paramount Plus right now. So I would say Jordan Peele is our new Alfred Hitchcock, if you will. And as far as the genre of film and TV that I work in, I'm probably best known for doing dramas, thought-provoking dramas, movies like our film Crash, and this TV show that I sold to Paramount Plus recently is a thought-provoking project as well, I hope. The project I'm working on with Thom, I think, is inspirational and thought-provoking. So I would say dramas that are thought-provoking would be sort of the lane that I'm I'm best known for. But I've sold other projects and been involved in comedies and reality shows and other things. But I'm probably best known for 1-hour dramas and movies that are dramatic.
So, Thom, let me ask you, the Oscar nominations are out. Is there anything that you, or is there a favorite that you have? Put it that way.
Well, yeah, the Oscar nominations just came out, and the Oscars themselves are going to be airing later than they ever have. I think they're going to be airing in mid to late April. Normally, the show would have aired by now. It's usually in late January, early February. The Oscars had 15 months, and films had 15 months to perform, which is 3 months longer than the normal burn rate, for lack of a better word. It's been a strange year, as we all know, for movies, because the movies that are nominated, most of us saw them at home via streaming services. And I think that for the most part, most of the films are fairly unknown to the broader audience. The movie that has the most momentum behind it right now is called Nomadland. And it's the third in a trilogy of movies that a Chinese filmmaker has made.
Right.
The America's Midwest. Her name is Chloe Zhao, and she made an exceptional film a couple of years ago called The Rider. And what she's known for is mixing real people on film with actors, but portraying true stories in a scripted format. So she's mixing all kinds of genres together, and she does it at this incredibly small budget. She does what we call micro-budgeted filmmaking, which means it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars versus millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions of dollars. Nomadland stars Frances McDormand. She's won 2 Academy Awards already, and she's also nominated for Best Actress this year. I think Nomadland will be the favorite to win Best Picture this year. The movie that's received the most nominations is called Mank, which is short for Mankiewicz. Mankiewicz was one of the writers credited for what many consider to be the greatest film of all time, Citizen Kane, which came out in 1941. So although Mankiewicz has the most nominations, I think Nomadland's the favorite to win Best Picture. And in animation, Pixar has another winner, I think, with the movie Soul.
Is Mank, is that a Fincher? Is that Fincher, Mank?
Mank was directed by David Fincher, and the movie was written by his now deceased father, Jack Fincher.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay. Barbara, you got anything else you want to ask Thom?
Yes, I did. Thom, I want to ask you about the Dorothy Hart Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah, I know you serve as a board member.
Oh, thank you for asking about that. The Joyful Heart Foundation is the brainchild of Mariska Hargitay. And Mariska, you would know from Law and Order Special Victims Unit. She's a Golden Globe and Emmy winner for her role of Olivia Benson in that show. As you know, Law and Order Special Victims Unit is about an investigation unit that most major urban police departments have, which deals with sex crimes. And Mariska is an old friend of mine. We went to UCLA together, and I've known her for almost 30 years. And she had been a comedy actress before she ever got that role in Special Victims Unit. And she was unprepared the kind of fan mail that she would get for playing Olivia Benson. Most fan mail for actors and actresses deal with their hair or their outfits or their personal lives. And Mariska was getting hundreds, if not thousands, of letters a week from people who were disclosing their sexual harassment that they had suffered, rape, incest, other really rough experiences. And they were disclosing these things to her because the character that Mariska plays on television is such a heroic figure who acts on behalf of these victims and survivors. And so she felt as though it was her calling to step out of the role that she plays on television and into the role of reality in terms of championing those whose stories must be told. And she was on the leading edge of this movement long before Time's Up or Me Too or any of this stuff that we've experienced in the past 3 or 4 years. Joyful Heart's been around for, I think, over 12 years now, and maybe longer. And it's dedicated to the healing, education, and empowerment survivors of domestic violence and child abuse. And one of our biggest initiatives is to take on the rape kit backlog that exists across the United States. And a rape kit is what police do after someone has reported a rape. That your body becomes a crime scene, and they take all kinds of tests and evidence from your body to try to find the person who's responsible for this rape. And unfortunately, a lot of prosecutors and district attorneys won't fund the actual testing of that rape kit because they think that maybe that case will be too hard to prove in court. So there's a huge backlog of these rape kits, and these women, and it's primarily women, have gone through the rape itself, then they've reported it, then they've used their body as a crime scene, and then nothing happens. There's no justice. And we've done a really extraordinary job of pushing back on that. And we've gotten New York and Los Angeles and Miami and Seattle and Atlanta and many of the major hubs around the country to eliminate their rape kit backlog, because the people who are rapists are generally bad guys. Generally, they're not just sex crime offenders, but they tend to be criminals across the board. And so if you can find this person in your community, they're typically responsible for a bunch of other crimes too. So we've been really effective at passing a lot of legislation on that particular subject.
Wow, that's interesting.
Wow, that's great. Great.
So Thom, let me ask you, Black Lives Matter. And I think I've seen, because I've been getting a lot of the screeners, films that are focusing on, quote, Black lives. Judas and the Black Messiah, The Five Bloods, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Are we going to see more of that, you think, as we go forward?
Absolutely. I think the summer of 2020 was a real turning point, not only for broader American society, but culturally in the corridors of entertainment and decision making inside the entertainment community. There's been a gigantic surge of interest in telling stories about African American lives, whether they're major figures like Martin Luther King, or whether it's somebody that's unknown seeking justice. There's a tremendous appetite to champion the Black experience right now, and it's it's a huge opportunity, frankly, for people who are looking to tell their stories in Hollywood who feel like they've been shut out or ignored. The doors are wide open.
Okay. Michael, you got another question?
Yes, I do. Thom, explain to me where things change from a news presentation and a sports presentation. And what I mean by that, back in the day when I used to do television reporting and radio and sports, you did a great job if the person listening didn't know who you were for. You just reported the facts. But now you have anchors, even like CBS This Morning or what have you, when they do a news story, they offer their opinion. So, how did news change from reporting the facts, providing people with information that they could use, to you becoming an opinionated newscaster? And why did that happen?
Well, you're describing a huge shift in journalism and in TV journalism in particular, but also, as you're aware, talk radio. And I'll focus primarily on television. When Fox News was born, it was Rupert Murdoch's brainchild, and he had taken advantage of this kind of intense, conservative is a polite way to put it, feeling in Australia and in the United Kingdom through his tabloid papers that he controlled there. And he used Fox News as an experiment to see, would I be able to attract that same kind of audience if I created a news channel that had a real slant to it, a real opinion slant. So it pivoted completely away from what you're describing, which is traditional objective journalism, and it moved towards pure, what we would call column journalism, where the reader in a newspaper would be expecting an opinion from an opinion column, but they wouldn't be expecting that from the front page of the newspaper. And this news channel, Fox News, suddenly became an opinion channel as opposed to a fact-based objective channel. It's not that facts aren't there with the Fox News, and I know I'm going to get in trouble from some of your listeners for this, but it's clearly opinionated, and it's clearly slanted towards a very conservative audience. In response to that, and it became and it remains the most popular news channel for the past 20 years in the United States. And so the rest of the news companies had no choice but to sit up and say, okay, well, we have to create more personality. We've got to create more opinion. The viewer seems to want to know what our opinions are. They don't want just the facts. They want to know what we think about the facts. And as a result, MSNBC then became more of a spokes channel for the left, and even more down the middle services like CNN or the national news networks, like you mentioned, CBS This Morning and others. They encourage their anchors to give their point of view. They've stepped out of that role of the objective storyteller into the role of, this is what I think. And it makes for a much more polarized country and polarized conversation, because people now are siding with individuals and personalities versus a shared set of facts.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always get a little frustrated when they give the news and then they have this panel who all give their opinions about the news, and it's like, well, who cares what they think? So, Thom, let me ask you one more thing before we. So you're executive producer of an Oscar-winning film, Crash. What was that like?
Well, I'll tell you that that movie got passed on. No studio wanted it. It's sort of a classic Hollywood story. Nobody wanted the script. Then once we got the cast attached to it, nobody still wanted the movie. Then we made the movie. Nobody wanted it. I really thought it was going to go at the time. We used to call this straight to video when Blockbuster Video was still a thing. And I really thought we were going to be selling a movie that never made it into movie theaters, you know? So we finally were invited to premiere the film at the Toronto International Film Festival. And when we did that, we got a huge response, big standing ovation. And we got an offer from Lionsgate to release the film. And we had sold that in the fall of 2005, I think it was, to Lionsgate. And if you remember the movie, it takes place around Christmas, so like a 3-day period around Christmas. And we did that on purpose because most movies that get nominated for an Oscar are released late in the fall or early winter. And Lionsgate said to us, "No, we're gonna open this movie next summer. We're gonna have it as an alternative to big blockbuster summer releases." And we just thought that was a terrible idea, and we were heartbroken over that. And we just kind of moved on with our lives because we sold that movie that in September the year before. It didn't come out until June the year after. So we had sort of moved on. And so then when the movie came out and it started to really perform, we were grateful for Lionsgate's wisdom with that. And we're surprised that it stayed in theaters for as long as it did. Most movies will have a run of 2 to 4 weeks at a movie theater. Our movie ran for 6 months. So, you know, we were up against Brokeback Mountain. That was the favorite. That was by far the most beloved film of the year by critics. It won every single award leading up to the Academy Awards. But then we got to the Screen Actors Guild Award and we won. And that was the last awards before the Oscars. And I think that it renewed people's interest in our movie. And as a result, we won the Academy Award.
That's great, man.
That's great.
Let me see if Barbara, Michael, you guys got one last question here.
Now, I just want to say, Thom, thanks for coming. You've been a very interesting guest, and I certainly appreciated your perspective on some of the topics we discussed today.
Thanks, Michael.
Barbara?
Likewise. I want to say thank you, Thom. I've really enjoyed the show this morning and having you with us. So thank you very much for being here, for getting up very early in the morning there.
Thank you, Barbara.
He didn't realize the time was going to change when he committed to do it.
I did not. I did not.
So, we appreciate it. Thom, I got something you'll appreciate too. I got a comment here in our comment section from Becky Davis Gibson, and Becky is one of our regulars. And Becky says, "I have a good idea for a movie, The Walk On."
Well, I agree with you, Becky. And that's going to be featured in the anthology of movies that we take out to market with Thom.
All righty. Well, let's move on. I appreciate let's see. My closing comment is, or as I see it, is about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She became just the second female U.S. Supreme Court justice when she took the oath of office on August 10th, 1993. She was a longtime forceful advocate of women's rights, gender equality, and earned the deep and abiding respect of her colleagues on the court, along with the American public. She passed away at the age of 87 on Friday, September 18th, 2020. She left us some very inspiring quotes, and I'm going to read 8 of them. Number 1, real change, enduring change happens one step at a time. And I know we've been involved in some things that people are trying to get changed, whether it be in higher ed, whether it be in our society culturally, but nothing changes overnight. Number two, often in life that you regard as an impediment turn out to be great good fortune. Number three, reacting in anger or annoyance will not advance one's ability to persuade. That's not going to get it. Number four, when a thoughtless or unkind word is spoken, it's best to tune out. Number five, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. Makes sense? Number six, reading is the key that opens doors to many good things in life. Reading shaped my dreams, and more reading helped me make my dreams come true. I can also testify to that. Number seven, don't be distracted by emotions like anger, envy, and resentment. These just zap energy and they waste time. Number eight, probably most important in the world we're living in today, you can disagree without being disagreeable. So that is our show for today. We want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. I want to thank Michael, Barbara. I want to thank Thom Noonan. Our G-list guest next week will be Professor Jorge Iber, who's a sports historian from Texas Tech University. I get to speak to his class every year, and I really enjoy it. That's our show. I want to thank our sponsor, Best Girl. If you're interested in having your business be a sponsor of the show, get in touch with us here at Thom at Best Girl. Thank Emily Hedrick, the communicator, our producer. Thanks Sean Jones, the organizer. It's a wrap. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe and peace.